Today's story is about very young heroes and how they saved their own mother and protected her. Rachel Moore and her children, Jaden, Cameron, Kaylee, Zane, and Samantha, had just gone out to eat and come back home, and she turned on the TV and she was fixing to start running their baths. It was a normal, ordinary evening, and then Rachel heard something that made her blood run cold. She heard a truck just screaming into the driveway, throwing up gravel, and she knew exactly what was going on. See, Rachel had had a relationship with a man named Darryl for 7 happy years, and then one day he snapped and he beat her up. And she had been in a relationship prior where she had experienced a lot of domestic violence, and she had decided that was not going to happen again. So she threw him out. And for 2 years, they had an amicable separation. She had no reason to believe that night Darryl would snap, drink way too much, and decide to come kill her. But when she heard those tires throwing gravel, her mind instantly went to, oh no, I know what this is about. And she and her children hurried to a room in the back of the house and locked themselves in. But then they waited, realized there was nothing else they could do. She knew that and they could hear him stomping through the house. He kicked the door down, and he stood there in the doorway for a moment with the gun. And then he walked in, and she said it was so scary because his eyes were black and he was mostly expressionless, and she just knew he's going to kill me and there's nothing I can do. She felt like she had to stand there and take that bullet because she didn't want him to shoot the kids. And they were all crowded in that room. There was nothing else she could do. She stood there and he lifted up that gun and he shot it. No pause, no second thoughts, no emotional response, nothing, just boom. And her left arm and shoulder just were hit by that shotgun blast and injured so badly, and she was thrown back and hit the ground, and she couldn't understand at first why she couldn't get back up again. The children had been screaming for him not to shoot, and of course he ignored them. Kaylee said, when she said, Dad, don't do it, he said, you don't have a dad anymore. Cameron, what went through his mind was, this could be it. This could be it for my mom. This could be it for the whole family. And he decided he was going to do whatever he had to do to try to. And he decided he was going to do whatever he had to do. He charged at Darryl as Darryl was cracking open the shotgun and starting to load another bullet. He charged at him and he elbowed him hard, and he tore the gun from his hands, disarmed him, and ran out of the room to go hide the gun. He had incredible presence of mind, and Darryl kind of shook it off and bent over and grabbed Rachel by the foot and dragged her across the floor bleeding, and straddled her and went to choke her, gouge her eyes out. Jaden wasn't having that. He tried leaping on on Darryl's back and putting him in a choke hold, tried, yanking back at his arms. He was doing whatever he could think of to stop him. It wasn't quite enough. Well, Cameron ran back in at that point, having hidden the gun, and took in the situation in an instant, as he had the first time, and he punched Darryl in the temple as hard as he could. And Darryl went over like a log. Of course, he went over on top of Jaden, who had him in a chokehold, and ended up landing on top of poor Jaden. And Jaden didn't let go until they were sure that he was unconscious. Now, while this was happening with the boys, Kaylee realized that what she had to do was get her mom out of there. Now, she is tiny 10-year-old at the time, but she managed to pick up her mom, and her mom remembers Kaylee mostly carrying her outside. And when she got her mom outside, she realized she was losing a lot of blood, and she ran back and she got a bandage and she bandaged up her mom's arm. And Rachel was saying, I'm gonna die if I can't get to the hospital. I'm bleeding so much. And so Kaylee went for the phone to call the police, and she dialed them up, and she tried to talk to the dispatch, but the dispatch didn't understand when she said her mom had been shot. So she gave the phone to Jaden, who'd managed to get out from under Darryl by that time. And Jaden had the conversation with them, explained how to get to their home. Now, Jaden at this time was only 14. Cameron was 12. Kaylee was 10, as I've said. Zane was only 2. Zane was only 4, and Samantha was 2. Now, when the violence started, what Zane had done is he took hold of his little sister and he stuffed her under the bed. He wanted to protect her from the violence, and that was the best he could think of to do, and he squeezed in after her. And when Darryl went down, Zane got Samantha out of the house. They were so incredibly brave. Now, Cameron, at this point, began dashing down the lane to go and check and see if emergency personnel had arrived, and then he'd go back up to check on his mom, back down, back up. It took a very long time for them to get there, and they were afraid their mom wasn't going to make it. So when he saw emergency personnel arrive, he was so excited, and he's like, come on, get up here. I disarmed him. The gun is hidden under the balcony. You're safe. I knocked him out. Everything's fine. You can come up. But they insisted on making procedure calls, and they wanted to make sure that they were safe. And not only that, then they wouldn't let Cameron back up the lane because they didn't want to let him go back into a dangerous situation, which was incredibly difficult for him. Now, when their mom was finally loaded up on the ambulance and taken away, they thought that meant everything would be fine. And they didn't know until later that she actually died 5 times and had to be brought back because Rachel had lost 2/3 of her blood volume by the time they got to her. But without the children, and without their quick thinking, and without their heroic actions, she would not have survived. And who knows if any of the others would. And Cameron definitely led the charge. You might be wondering how children that young could figure out what to do and act so economically and so logically in the circumstances. Well, the thing is, the 3 oldest children were also child actors, and they had been given combat training, for choreography, like choreography, fight training, and they had been able to use that in real life. They had actually been able to disarm an attacker and knock him out, choke him down, and protect the person who was wounded. They had done an amazing job. Now, of course, there were a lot more struggles for them to go through. Their mom so far has had 33 surgeries to try to completely restore her arm. It's still not certain that she'll get to keep it. No matter what happens to us, we can use the things that we've learned. We can take action, and we can affect the outcome of any situation, no matter how negative. We may not be able to choose our circumstances, but we can always choose how to respond to them. Bye, guys. See you next time.